Hi, Tucker. How are you?
I'm interested in what happened exactly. So tell us. Our understanding is you were set to give a speech at UC Berkeley tonight. You knew there were going to be protests, and then violence erupted, and you had to leave. Is that correct? And fill in the blanks for us.
Right. Well, we knew there would be protests from the social media activity. We knew from the police. I have a pretty good sense of when things are going to get a bit rowdy, and we knew that UC Berkeley was going to be a problem, not least because they have a big free speech problem. Obviously, it's a liberal campus, so they hate any libertarians or conservatives who dare to express an opinion on their campuses. They particularly don't like me. And so this evening we got into the building, started preparing for the show, and people started arriving in black clothes and masks. They were clearly carrying concealed shields and weapons and things. And then stuff started being hurled at the building. There were rocks being thrown, various other things being thrown at the building. Eventually, the ground floor was breached, and I was evacuated.
Who evacuated you?
My security detail. I have an excellent team of Navy SEALs, various other people, and some of the police from the local area.
Tell me if I'm misreading this, but this looks like the nightmare scenario. This looks like political violence designed to squelch opinions the perpetrators of that violence disagree with. Am I reading it correctly?
That's exactly what it is. And what's particularly scary and should be particularly troubling is it not only happened on an American college campus, supposedly in the land of the free, these are these places where you should be able to engage with different ideas, places where you should be able to hear speakers. And students who come to my talks who don't necessarily agree with me but just want to hear the other side, they were prevented from doing so this evening by violence from the left that is terrified of anyone who they think might be persuasive or might be interesting or might take people with them. I am not, a scary far-right, kind of neo-Nazi as some of the posters claim. They put those things on posters to try to legitimize their own violence against me and against my supporters. Instead, I'm just a sort of libertarian, gay, Trump-supporting provocateur who likes to, present interesting arguments. And we have good fun shows with huge sold-out audiences, very, very popular. I'm probably the hardest ticket on American college campuses. Students absolutely love me, but there's more loud just left that just cannot tolerate anyone popular on campus not subscribe to their own crazy views.
I guess the point isn't what your political views are. I would be every bit as outraged and afraid if I disagreed with your views, and I'm sure I do disagree with some of your views. That's hardly the point. The point is your political views were squelched by violence, and the irony, of course, is that people calling you a Nazi were using violence to intimidate you into shutting up, which seems like
well, of course, these are people.
Right.
No, this is exactly the same thing happened when my book was announced. My book shot to the top of the Amazon bestseller chart within 24 hours of being announced, and people were saying they were going to burn, calling me a fascist. They really don't appreciate the irony of that. And of course, if you don't agree with my position, you should be particularly worried about people on your own side trying to squelch this stuff with violence. Because my whole thing is, the left is profoundly antithetical to free speech these days, does not want to hear alternative points of view, and will do anything to shut them down. My point is being proven to me over and over and over again.
It's remarkable. Milo, will you stay with us? We're going to reset into the Hannity
Absolutely.
Hour, but we want to keep you there. So I want you to stay with us. We've got breaking news in progress. We're going to be right back with live coverage of what's going on in Berkeley, California. It is violent, and it is unfolding as we speak. We've got Milo Yiannopoulos, the focus of this violence, on the phone with us. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just seconds. I want to open this with a Fox News alert. Massive protests and rioting have erupted at the University of California at Berkeley. Demonstrators have forced the cancellation of a speech by Breitbart News' Milo Yiannopoulos. Demonstrators have set fires. They burned vehicles. They launched fireworks at the building, threw rocks, trying to breach the doors in an effort to cause chaos, and that they did. They drove Milo, the speaker, from the scene. Police are apparently on the scene. We haven't seen them in the videos. We do have Milo Yiannopoulos by phone with us, though, right now. So, Milo, just to recap for viewers who are joining us right now, right at the top of the 10 o'clock hour Eastern time, we know you're out in California. Give us just a quick recap of what just happened.
Absolutely. Well, I have a college talk, which is very popular, always oversubscribed, and people love to come and listen to my contention that free speech is under serious threat on American college campuses from the progressive left, from the social justice left. Well, once again, and we had similar things happen at UW Seattle and UC Davis, they have proven me right. Violent left-wing protesters stormed the building and forced me to be evacuated by police and by my security detail this evening, preventing me from giving the last speech in my tour. which was supposed to be exactly about this problem. So, heavily ironic and very, I think, self-defeating for the social justice left.
Now, Trace Gallagher had given us a detail, and I want to check its accuracy with you. He had said that the university system, the UC system, had told you that you had to pay the security costs. You had to have security because of the threats you got from the anti-free speech agitators outside. But rather than making them pay for the cost of security, you had to bear it. Is that accurate?
Well, this happens everywhere you go, and a lot of people don't know about this. It's a new kind of censorship, a sort of slippery tactic that American colleges use. They only ever level it at conservatives, only ever speakers they don't like. At the last minute, they impose massive security fees on the students who have invited you. So what they'll basically say is, oh, by the way, you have to come up with $6,500 in 5 days' time, or you can't have this speaker. And they wait right until the last minute to do it. Now, in this case, they absolutely did this again at UC Berkeley. Fortunately, we had a private donor, an anonymous donor, who did not want to be identified for fear of reprisals from the social justice left, come in and say, I will cover this because this is absolutely outrageous. But it happened at UC Davis. It happened almost every college, that is in the UC system does this. It's a trick they try to pull. They did it at UC Irvine as well, twice, I think. They try to pull this trick every single time. The students are wise to it, but these are 19-year-old kids. They can't always come up with $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 with 5 days' notice. And they do this, strategically. They do it at the last minute, and they do it on purpose to try to derail events where conservative speakers are going to be present.
But what seems so unfair, so perverse about that is there's no mystery as to who some of these protesters are because, as you pointed out, they organize through social media online. So they're identifiable. Some of them aren't, but some of them are. They know that groups are going to protest. And so the school could assess them the security fees, but instead they're blaming you for the violence against you?
But yes, exactly. And it's this sort of Kafkaesque cycle the left always engages in, like feminists who sort of bait men into saying mean things on Twitter and then immediately turn around and play the victim. They create precisely the problem that they say they're there to fix, legitimizing their own position by being the bad actor in the first place. American higher education, these universities have pandered to this social justice, have allowed students to muddy the waters between idea and action, between speech and action, by endorsing this sort of language like safe spaces, student safety. No one's safety is at risk from different opinions. No one's physical safety is endangered by political ideas, from a speaker on campus. But universities have sort of allowed this stuff to happen, even in some cases encouraged it. And then, as you correctly say, they punish speakers who are the victim of precisely what by pandering to social justice, pandering to third-wave feminism, and pandering to Black Lives Matter.
So if you're just joining us now, I just want to reset really quickly. This is the top of Hannity. We're going to be joined by Sean Hannity in just a minute. But an outbreak, a troubling one, of political violence tonight in Berkeley, California, over a speech by Milo Yiannopoulos, who's a well-known author. And you're seeing vehicles burning in the street. You're seeing rocks thrown. Apparently what were fireworks. We haven't confirmed that, but something that sounded like fireworks. And it might have been firearms. Unclear at this point, and no obvious law enforcement presence. What about that, Milo? We have Milo on the phone here. We heard from Trace Gallagher that law enforcement was responding, and of course that makes sense, but we're not seeing any evidence of law enforcement in any of these videos. Can you shed some light on that?
Well, the extent to which police assist on these occasions varies widely. I mean, I remember when I was speaking at DePaul University, the university administrators told Chicago PD not to intervene when protesters stormed the stage, snatched the mic, and swung for my face. And that was 6 months ago. Universities have had a long time to come up with responses to this. And by and large, there seems to be some weird policing strategies going on. I mean, I can only tell you what I've heard from my team and what I saw this evening. Seems like it was a very hands-off approach until the very last minute. Let it burn, let them wear themselves out, and we'll only intervene at the very, very last moment. I'm not in a position to speculate. I don't want to cast aspersions or to engage in conspiracy theory, but it did not seem to me as though everything was being done that could possibly be done to allow this event to proceed.
Well, the videos certainly suggest that you're right. Again, we don't see anybody trying to hold back the crowd or stop the fires.
No, and I will also say that it was the police, as far as I can tell, who made the call to cancel the event. The college Republicans and the university administrators had not made that call. I certainly hadn't made that call. I would have proceeded with this event in almost any circumstance, unless there was a significant threat to my audience or my team. But it was the police who made the decision.
We should be clear that police departments across the country take their orders from elected officials, and they don't necessarily make these decisions autonomously. And I don't want to overstate the significance of this. This is a peaceful, nice country filled with peaceful, nice people. But there does seem to be an escalation of this kind of political violence, and that's exactly what it is. It's political violence designed to prevent people from giving their political opinions. Do you see that? Does this kind of thing appear to be escalating in the last couple of years?
Absolutely, and I think a lot of these protesters know they can't get at the president. You know, they know they can't get at Trump now because now he's the president. You know, even when he was the president like this before that, they can't really get to him. So they pick the next best target. I'm a very outspoken speaker. I'm a big fan of his. I annoy, you know, the feminists and the Black Lives Matter guys probably almost as much as Trump does, certainly on college campuses. So they go for the next best thing. They go for the target they can get to, or the person that they can get in physical proximity with, the person they think they can scare. Well, they don't scare me. I will continue to give college talks until the day I drop dead. But one of the things that I'm, of course, at the mercy of is decisions made by police to sort of let them get out of hand and then evacuate me from the building, which I don't have very much control over.
So, I mean, just to ask you a personal question. You're obviously an immigrant to this country. Our viewers can hear by your accent, and you grew up in the UK, where there is no First Amendment. When you came to the United States, I assume, like most immigrants, you believed your views would be protected by our famous First Amendment. Have you found that to be true?
I have been so shocked coming out. So I work for Breitbart, which is obviously an American media company. I'm here on a visa, actually. And, you know, I've been so shocked at America, which I thought was going to be the sort of bastion of free speech, this sort of, you know, land of the free, home of the brave, this place where you could say, do, and be anything. And I've discovered that, in fact, you know, higher education, American college campuses really are some of the most oppressive places for free expression and free you know, creativity of anywhere that I have experienced anywhere in Europe. And let me tell you, some of Europe is very censorious. I mean, there are places in, you know, there are police forces in various bits of England that say, oh, misogyny is going to be against the law. You can't be offensive on the internet or we'll arrest you. You know, we're not that far away from that sort of atmosphere, certainly culturally in America. You know, the progressive left now has had this stranglehold over the entertainment industry, news, you know, almost all the other big institutions of social power in this country for so long that the chilling effect on ordinary citizens is massive. And in academia, it is particularly terrible. Trump's election, I hope, is going to shake this up a bit and allow people to speak a little more freely. But if tonight is any indication, the left is not going to give this up without a fight.
So, I mean, it's interesting, and I'm sure you know this, even though you didn't grow up here. Traditionally, the left styled itself as defenders of free speech. Berkeley, as we noted earlier, and ironically, is the birthplace of the free speech, famously the free speech movement. Have you found allies on the American left who say, I may not agree with your conclusions, but I will, in the famous formulation, do anything to make sure you're allowed to express them? Has anybody stood up on the left for your free speech rights?
In public life, absolutely not. Not a single journalist from the left, not a single politician from the left, not a single cultural figure or celebrity from the left. Nobody has had the balls to do so in public because they know what would happen to them. They know what would happen when Mike and BuzzFeed and you know, and Fox, you know, got a hold of them and got their teeth into them. They know that it would destroy their careers to stick up for anybody who steps off the ideological reservation. However, privately, thousands of people, and not just people who come to my shows, who come up to me in the, you know, the meet and greet afterwards and say, you know, thank you so much. I don't agree really with anything that you say, but it was really important for me to be here because I think my own side's gone mad. You know, I get thousands of people like that write to me, come up to me in the street. You know, it's absolutely astonishing. And it's how I know that, you know, we're on the cusp of something exciting. And it's how I know that we're going to win this, even if we have some ugly incidents like this evening, because the left is now acting like, you know, a dog that has just been kicked that knows it's about to get, you know, another one to the head. It is lashing out in its sort of, you know, angry, wounded death throes, if you like, behaving as tyrants always do when they're backed into a corner with violence and hysterics, you know, unable to hear, unable to think.
And I admire your optimism. I do, and I wish I shared it.
I'm the only person on the right in America that is optimistic about this, but I really am because, you know, you've got to remember, BuzzFeed, for instance, which I think is, you know, the great cancer of American media establishment. You've got to remember, I mean, it's a very generational thing. People my age, I'm 32, people my age are the problem, right? Bitter, middle-aged BuzzFeed bloggers, the social justice loons are the problem. But if you look at younger kids, if you look at, you know, my fans start at 12, 13, 14 years old, and they email me and they tell me, my parents would kill me if they knew that I watched you on YouTube. My parents would murder me if they knew I was a fan of yours, but I love you and I hate BuzzFeed. I get hundreds of emails like that. So I really do believe my generation, which is, particularly homogeneously far left in these censorious school marmish, nannying, coal clutching sort of ways, my generation is having kids now, and those kids really don't like this stuff very much. So I am optimistic, even if it's a sort of long-term optimism.
Right. Well, and I'm glad you are. On the other hand, and we're speaking to Milo Yiannopoulos, your speech was just canceled tonight because of violence designed to stop you from speaking. And moreover, our understanding is that a subsequent speech, a speech in future days you were set to give, has also been canceled. And so it seems to me,
yeah, but look at
the
consequences.
Okay.
Look at the consequences of this are going to be, right? University of Missouri pandering to race hustlers and hucksters. What was the result? Alumni donations went down by 30 million and had to close 2 dormitories because admissions went down so much. There is a consequence to these institutions. The American higher education marketplace is exactly that, a marketplace, the competition for students. And I get letters all the time, and admittedly, all I can do is tell from, the wave of stuff that comes in my inbox. I get letters from people all the time, and really serious big donors who say, I'm not writing checks to my old college anymore because I see what's happening on these campuses. When this stuff hits the news, like tonight is now national news, and every network is carrying it. When stuff like this happens, people start to ask questions, and they start to reconsider sending their kids to these colleges in the first place, donating to these colleges, and whether these colleges deserve the revered position that we afford them in society. I think, tonight is odious and a horrible spectacle and very humiliating for American higher education. But I would like to think that it will have a silver lining. I like to think that that good will come of it. And that was the purpose of my tour in the first place. My purpose of my tour was to go out there and see really what the limits of free speech on American campuses really were. And I found that actually you can't say very much at all without people getting upset. But that, I think,
that's apparent.
Everybody can see it now.
So really quickly, we've got about 30 seconds left before we're going to take a break,
Sure.
Milo, and thank you for this. Have you, in your travels, met anyone on the left who has said, I want to debate you on the issues. I disagree, and here's my view.
No,
or has it been like this?
Never. It's, you're a racist, you're a sexist, you're a homophobe, ridiculously. I mean, they call me a gay homophobe, whatever. Name-calling, slander, slurs, insults, and now violence. They never want to debate because they're scared of losing. They don't have the facts on their side. For 30 years, the left has been able to bully people into silence by name-calling, and they've forgotten how to argue.
Yeah, I've certainly discovered that. You're watching pictures of a group of thugs committing political violence at the University of California at Berkeley. Milo Yiannopoulos is on the phone. You'll stay with us, Milo, I hope. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to be back. I want to take you to Fox News Alert now. UC Berkeley is in turmoil tonight, real turmoil, as rioters set fires and forced the cancellation of a speech by writer Milo Yiannopoulos. Fox's Trace Gallagher has more on what's going on there tonight. Trace?
And if you look at these pictures, Tucker, you can see, I mean, these guys are burning flags. They are busting windows. Right now, the entire campus at UC Berkeley is on lockdown. The police are trying to disperse the crowd, but so far, they're not going anywhere. You can see the fire right there. The teachers or the administrators are up on top of the building trying to spray fire extinguishers down. This was all over a speech by Milo Yiannopoulos. As you said earlier, he, of course, is a Breitbart writer, and the push tonight was to start this push so that campuses campuses like UC Berkeley that are considered sanctuary campuses, which means they harbor illegal immigrants. They will not work with the federal government when it comes to illegal immigrants. They were trying to start this push to get federal dollars taken away from these UC campuses. Anybody who does not know Janet Napolitano, who is the former head of Department of Homeland Security, former Arizona governor, she is now the president of the UC system. And right after Donald Trump was elected, she made this push to start this sanctuary campus policy that they would not comply with the feds. And what the Republicans on campus and what this speech was about tonight was to try and get this campus and other UC campuses get federal dollars taken away from them if they are not going to abide by federal law. This speech was supposed to start tonight at around 6 o'clock. Well, they canceled it at 5 o'clock. The riots really began around that same time, and now you can see the crowd, it seems to be dispersing. Half the signs are anti-Milo signs, the other half are anti-Trump signs, so there's clearly a bigger issue going on here. The young Republicans on campus who are putting this thing on were told they could have the speaker, but they would have to pay the cost of the extra security, and they said fine. But of course, the protests, as you can see, have been ongoing now for a couple of hours, and police are having a difficult time trying to disperse this crowd. But the entire campus remains on lockdown tonight, except for these people who apparently won't leave. Tucker.
So, Trace, what exactly are we looking at? Do you know? We've got pictures here which are either live or just briefly delayed, and it appears to be some kind of vehicle. I can't tell what it is. It's a husk, a burned-out husk. What is that?
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's like a... to be honest, I don't know what that vehicle is. It looks like there's a wheel on top. I don't know if that is some kind of a vehicle. If you know, Jessica, just yell out at me. But I know they've been, you can see pictures earlier, they're up and they're slamming and busting into the windows. They've been throwing stuff at the police officers around there. They've been carrying protest signs around. They've been lighting flags on fire. And when one fire is put out, they go up and they light another one. Right now, they look to be just kind of standing around. But there is clearly an element of this crowd that is trying to stir things up. They think it's partly teachers. There are a lot of students there, and there are a lot of outsiders that came specifically to protest Milo Yiannopoulos' speech tonight on campus. So the breakdown, we don't know. Some of these pictures are from earlier. This is not the campus. That's in downtown Berkeley itself. You can see the campus right there, and when they kind of widen out, you can see that there is a fairly sizable crowd on hand for this. And again, it looks like it could be some kind of a cart that was overturned and then lit on fire, but quite honestly, I'm unclear. A trailer of some sort, maybe like a food trailer of some sort that might be, Tucker.
With the tires burned off. These pictures are a little confusing, yeah. Trace, because there's no evident law enforcement presence. People are standing around this burning vehicle like it's a campfire. You don't. Where are the cops here?
They're there. I mean, it's kind of hard to see them, but we've been watching this for a while now. They're there. I just don't know exactly where they are. I mean, they were inside the building. They were on top of the building. They were surrounding this, but they are certainly not being aggressive. I mean, look, you're talking about UC Berkeley. The protests here go back 50, 60 years, right? They do this on a pretty regular basis, and they knew this was going to happen. Go ahead, Tucker.
I don't think we have the pictures right here, but earlier we had shots of protesters trying to ram something through a glass barricade, through a glass door, which does seem a little over the top. Has anyone been arrested, do we know? And how's the state responding to this? The city of Berkeley?
We don't know of any arrests so far. We have not heard of any arrests so far. We know that, and you can, I don't know if that's tape or live. That's videotape from earlier. You can see they keep lighting these. We don't know of any arrests so far, but again, this is all kind of a fluid thing. We don't know the response from the state. I mean, UC Berkeley has its own force. They've brought in some, we know they've brought in some local police from around the area to patrol this, but they're kind of in a backed off position right now. They've told people that to leave. This is kind of a lockdown situation. But as far as tear gas, as far as going after and pushing some of these kids away and these teachers and whoever else might be a part of this crowd away, we haven't seen that yet. But we do know there is a police presence.
Yeah, well, this is the new posture of American law enforcement during riots, hands off. And just to recap, so this began, and as you noted, there are probably a bunch of different causes for this, but it was certainly precipitated by a speech that was supposed to be given by Milo Yiannopoulos, who's a writer and a provocateur, a conservative, among other things. Where's he? Do we know?
He's gone. I mean, he left. So he was supposed to speak, and he actually made it on campus, but he left. As soon as this stuff got kind of violent and they started lighting the fires, they escorted him out. So we were told about 45 minutes ago that Milo Yiannopoulos was gone. He had left the building, and they just canceled the speech, and that was that. But these guys didn't leave. The protesters stayed on. And when they were told to push back, they kept getting a little more violent and started breaking things, started lighting things. And now you can see they're just kind of milling around. But there are certainly some agitators there that are trying to cause some trouble.
Right. So the people who committed violence got to speak, but the person who didn't had to leave. I guess that's maybe one of the lessons.
In essence.
In essence. Trace Gallagher, thanks a lot for that. Appreciate it.